everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Death Space Filling the Void. I've got a great episode today featuring my friend Rajiv Fernandez. And one of the things I've learned while working on this podcast has been the many ways that friends and people you know are working their way through grief and trying to help others. And it may be something that they don't talk about often or ever. This episode is a perfect example. I didn't know that Rajiv was putting together care packages for his friends when they lost a parent. And for people who don't know Rajiv, based on his design background and attention to detail, that means these people are getting these beautiful, well thought out, well designed packages that are super personal. So I'm excited to share this episode where Rajiv talks about his unofficial Dead Dads Club. As he says, it's not a club that you want to be in, but it can mean a whole lot for people who are suddenly thrust into it. So this is episode 5 of Death Space Filling the Void, and that means it's the last episode of season 1. After this, I'll be switching to season 1 of my other podcast, That Gives Me Anxiety. I've got 5 episodes lined up for that, and I'm very excited to start getting that out into the world as well. After 5 episodes there, I'll be coming back to Death Space Filling the Void for Season 2, which is 10 episodes already done, taken care of, and a lot of wonderfully honest interviews around grief and life. And stick around, and this podcast will definitely be coming back. Before we jump into the interview with Rajiv, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Garnished Entertainment. Are you missing your friends? Tired of unwinding in front of the TV? Losing your marbles ever so slightly? Shake up your night with a Garnished virtual cocktail event. Garnished Entertainment is a New York City-based mixology event company with the mission of bringing communities together through creative and entertaining virtual cocktail classes. Whether you're catching up with old friends, team building with colleagues, or looking for the perfect date night, Garnished would love to be your host. Let's garnish. Today's episode is also sponsored by My Software Tutor. Do you fear the spreadsheet? Phobia begone. My Software Tutor offers 3 levels of real-time Zoom-based courses with a live instructor. They all deliver practical, functional business skills in a friendly, supportive environment. These courses will increase your marketability, whether you're an employee, job seeker, consultant, or contractor. Register at mysoftwaretutor.com and use promo code POD20 to save 20% off all registrations. All right, as always, please look for Death Space Filling the Void on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And if you're enjoying the show, please remember to rate and review it. Thank you so much for listening and supporting Season 1 of Death Space Filling the Void. And I hope you'll check out Season 1 of That Gives Me Anxiety. All right, thank you so much, and enjoy. Now joining me on the podcast is Rajiv Fernandez, a friend of mine I know through improv, who's an illustrator, also goes by the moniker Little Icon, also used to be an architect.
Still am, but trying to spread more positivity in the world through illustration right now.
Right, a lot of your work has been featured pretty prominently on like the streets of New York City, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. It's good to be able to connect with people in a medium that I can put out there really fast. Like I just had this image go viral over 4th of July, and it was just a simple American flag, but it was just spelled out with Breonna Taylor's name. And, just be able to connect with a ton of people through such like a simple message, it made me feel good. It made me feel like what I was doing was worth it.
Right. Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Well, the other project that you kind of have going on, and I didn't even know you were doing this, but would you say you're the founding member of the unofficial Dead Dads Club?
That's right. I'm like the dead parent liaison, it seems. It's not a club anyone, aspires to be in, but right. When you get in, it's like a fraternity. Like you're taken care of by the other members.
Well, it's so nice. How did that get started?
Well, first my dad died. No, so like my dad died when I was pretty young, when I was 20. And so it's something that I'd experienced, and I've lived with, one parent for a good portion of almost half my life. And now that a lot of other friends, their their generation is starting to die off,
Right.
um, they kind of talk, they're like, oh, well, you've been through this experience. Like, what should I expect? And
Hmm.
the funny thing is, like, there's no guidebook to it. And I
Yeah.
I tell them every single time, I'm like, you can't, grief works differently for every single person. But I think one thing that's really important is to have a support system there. And I think
Hmm.
everyone that goes through an experience like this realizes that, and they're willing to help and contribute, which is nice. I haven't met a single person that's like, nah, I'm good. Like, I don't want to help out.
Yeah. I'm lucky to have both of my parents. It's just such a hard experience that you feel like you can pass along something, anything, like different tips to someone who just lost a parent.
I remember, okay, there are a few things I remember when my dad died, what people told me. Um,
Hmm.
One was my friend Rohini. She's like, oh man, like, I don't know what to do. She's like, I wish I could give you some naan. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is like the dumbest thing I've ever.
Naan? Just
Yeah,
food?
naan, like, yeah, like the Indian bread.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the hell is wrong with her? But the thing is, that's the only thing I remember, and therefore it's also the most comforting thing. And so then when her dad died some years later, I said to her, I'm like, I wish I could give you naan. And she's like, what the fuck is that supposed to mean? I'm like, so actually, that's actually what I tell everyone now. It's say like, this is gonna sound really stupid, but I wish I could give you some naan. I just want to give you some comfort food or something.
Yeah. Well, there's so much comfort in food, right?
Exactly. Oh yeah. Well, we'll get to that. Um, but the other thing was a family friend of ours. She said, I lost my dad when I was like 16, and she said, like, expect the grieving process to take about 3 years. And I was like, 3 years? Like, what kind of like timestamp is this? This is ridiculous.
Like
And
all of a sudden,
yeah,
it's been 3 years. I feel
and then
better.
yeah, and then after 3 years, I was like, oh, this is like, a lot easier to handle. So
Hmm.
I don't know if it was like subconsciously in me thinking that, oh, when 3 years comes, I'll get over it or not. But like I was saying before, it's like grief, like everyone like handles it so differently. I dealt with it at first by like eating a lot. I was just like binge eating like my feelings and everything.
Well, where were you at that time? Were you living with your parents?
No, so I,
Um,
I was in college,
okay.
and it was right before Thanksgiving break, and my parents had gone to Southeast Asia, to Cambodia and Thailand on vacation,
Hmm.
and I was about to leave that day to go to London to meet my sister for spring break,
Hmm.
and that morning I get a call from my sister. I'm like, like, what do you need? Like, what else do you need? And she's like, Pa had like a massive stroke, and it doesn't look good. So
Oh no.
that was like one of those things where we all just dropped everything, and we flew out to Thailand to basically, spend his last 2 weeks comatose with him, and bring his body back home.
Oh
So
wow. I'm so sorry. That must have been so difficult and feeling helpless and
yeah,
while you're in the air.
yeah. I remember like having my sunglasses on and like crying, and then like when the air hostess like walked by, she's like, can I get you anything? I was like, no, thank you. A ginger ale, actually. But
Just crying. Oh my gosh.
no, it's a whole array of emotions, when something like suddenly happens like that. And
Well, what
uh
are some of those emotions? Is it just like shock? Is it
I would, yeah, like you're definitely in shock. Like you don't know like what to say. Like I remember talking to my mother, and I'm like, wow, she seems like pretty calm and everything. And it seemed like people that weren't the immediate family were having such a more difficult time than us. And I think, we're just trying to like absorb this thing that like just hit us, like a pile of bricks.
Mhm.
And especially when there was no sign of illness, leading up to this death.
Right.
And I remember as soon as my brother got there, like a day before my sister and I reached, and I just remember like as soon as like we all saw each other, then like the emotion hit and like the situation sunk in.
Mm,
But I will say, with it just being our family in Thailand in this foreign land, it kind of allowed us to take in that moment together rather than having like the distractions of friends and family coming by and trying to help out. So it allowed us to really have a private moment with each other,
mm.
which is in retrospect something that I was like thankful for.
Just like a breath.
Yeah, it's like it's like we didn't have to deal with like a long lost friend who like wanted to come say something, or it was just very private. It was just us. So that was nice. And one thing that my father always taught me growing up was never feel bad for yourself because someone always has it worse. And
Very true words. Yeah.
yeah, and at that time, I just kept thinking, God, like, how could this happen to us? Blah blah blah. And the doctor, he told us, he's like, you'd be surprised about like how common this is. Like this does happen frequently. And I think that gave us a little bit of solace too, knowing that this wasn't a very unique situation to us. Other people have gone through this, and so there is a way out, or there is hope at the end of the road.
What do you mean? Like, if this is happening so often and people walking around day to day seem to be fine, that gives you like the inspiration that like
Right.
you'll get back to that.
Yeah.
I've never thought of it that way. That's interesting.
It's basically like how they're putting people of color into leading roles on TV, seeing representation. It's
Hmm.
like, oh, okay, like my experience is being seen right now. It was kind
Mm.
of the same type of situation. It's like, oh, other people have been through this. Okay, okay, I can get through this. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then and then for I remember like in the immediate aftermath, it was just like a whole array of emotions when it would hit you. I remember at his funeral, I was like, I just could not stop laughing.
Oh, just like a nervously.
Yeah, like, well, you know how I like laugh at inappropriate times.
Yes, you do. Yeah.
And it
I've
was
been on improv stages with you. Yeah.
yeah, it's like just like the simplest thing where like I remember like my cousin went up to speak at the funeral, and just the mic, just like she was so close to the mic, it was super loud. And my sister and I just like burst out laughing, and like we're putting our heads down like on the pew and everything and shaking with laughter. And then I just feel my aunt rubbing my back saying, "It'll be okay, it'll be okay."
While
so
you're laughing.
so I have to pretend that like my laughter is like sobbing.
Yeah.
But but you know what? Like my father was also known to laugh at inappropriate times, so I guess I was just honoring him.
There
But
you go.
but yeah, so like I was in the pew like laughing hysterically, and then like within like 5 minutes, then my mother was like sobbing, and my brother was just stoic, and it's so strange how people deal with it, and
Yeah.
um,
Grief hits, as you said, grief hits people in different ways.
yeah, you can't predict it. But then I remember like 2 months later, I was just lying in my dorm room, and then just this wave of emotion came across me, and I was like, I never cry, and like what, like why am I like so uncontrollably sad right now? Things like that would happen, and that's what I've told a lot of friends now. It's like you don't know when it's going to hit you, but when it does, it'll take you by surprise, and it's unpredictable. But as long as you have people that are there to support you, you'll be good.
And like, how can people best support someone in a time of grief, in your opinion?
I think just first, like acknowledging it, acknowledging what happened to the person, acknowledging the loss that happened. I remember I became very resentful to a lot of friends just because they didn't reach out, they didn't call
Send
or
a text or
message
anything?
me. Yeah, and I felt extremely resentful. And then like another friend would say like, "Oh, they just didn't know what to say," and I'm like, but like I felt so hurt, like they didn't care. And so I think it's always a good idea just to, even if you don't know what to say, just say, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say, but like I'm thinking of you.
Totally.
And
Even the wildly overused at this point thoughts and prayers.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
at least there's a knock on the door instead of no nothing.
That's true. Well, actually, I remember when everyone would say like, "Oh, you're in my prayers." I'm like, "You don't pray." I know you. I saw you on Saturday night. You definitely did not go to church.
Right.
I think just reaching out to someone, it makes them feel like that they can contact you. Even when people say like, "Oh, if you need anything, like let me know." I mean, they're not going to go out of their way to be like, "Hey, I need something." But
Right.
even just knowing that someone's willing to be there for you is really comforting.
Yeah,
Um, so one
absolutely.
thing that I've been doing as of late is, so bereaved people love gift baskets. All right.
Of
So
course.
I remember these friends of ours back home, they sent us this gift basket and it had all these great wines and cheeses and sausages and stuff. And like we went crazy over it. Like, oh, this is like hitting the spot. This is so good. And then they sent one again the next year. And we're like, oh, this is fantastic. And then the third year, we're just like waiting at the door. We're like, where's the gift basket?
I
Come
need
on.
sausages. Let's go.
Yeah.
Cheese.
And so we're like, well, I guess they don't care about us anymore.
Uh-huh.
But so with that gift basket idea, I started mobilizing my friends when a parent dies, and I jokingly call it bereavementbasket.com. But what it
Because
is
it's not a real,
no, it's
right,
not.
for everyone listening, it's not like a real website. This is
I thought
Rajiv for his friends group.
my entrepreneurial spirit thought about looking into it and making it something,
Mhm.
but it's like nobody wants to like register for comfort items that they'll want when someone dies. So
Good
um
point. But what if it was just baskets, like pre-made ideas that you could?
exactly. Well, the other thing is usually these baskets have a lot of alcohol in them, so there's some like legality issues of being able to sell that on.
Gotcha. Yeah. Don't
um
want to be setting somebody down a bad path potentially as well.
yeah, or just like high schoolers buying it for a Friday night.
There's that too.
But basically what it is I send out the last few times I've done it, I just send out an email to our mutual friend group and I say, hey, Bree, people love gift baskets. Let's put one together for our friend, just so that they know that we're thinking of them. And like we all just chip in like 20, $30 or something, and that gives us a couple $100 to play with. Go get some nice foods like from Italy, for example, for New York.
Ooh.
Get them a nice like bottle of whiskey or wine. Another thing I like to include is some gifts from the MoMA store. A lot of us are designers, so they have a lot of fun things that we like. I especially like giving puzzles. It's a really nice way to kind of take your mind off things and put something together.
This
Um,
sounds
like
incredibly well curated.
yeah, it's like the pieces of your life have fallen apart. You can put it right back
Oh
together.
my God. I knew there was a pun or some sort of metaphorical joke in here somewhere.
No, but then we put it into a bag, and with me being a hustler that I am, I'll customize the bag with a little icon drawing of some sort. It's like if you're gonna give a gift, make sure you can brand it somehow. But no, all kidding aside, it's just just like receiving like a basket from your friends with comfort items that are personalized. I feel really it's just you feel a sense of gratitude to someone
Yeah.
for thinking of you. And because I remember that is like when my dad died, we would get tons of food came to us. Being from the Midwest, it was everything from like a casserole to rack of lamb and everything. And then even like I remember someone sent like a plant, and I was like, do you know what? Like this plant is so much better than flowers that will die within a week.
Yeah.
That allows you to kind of take care of it, and you kind of remember that person who gave you that plant because that's going to be around for a while. So
Yeah, plans seem like a good idea too, because I find in moments of grief with myself is that like you take like a little success and a little mental lift and
yeah,
you can build upon that. I always think about it like a stepping stone or stairs to feeling better, and caring for a plant and having it doing well, I think is a very small step that can lead to bigger steps.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like people thrive when the things that they nurture and care for thrive. So
Very
it
true.
might be a plant or, a puzzle coming together or a meal that they cooked from these ingredients. I think these are just like very small ways saying like, sure, some we lost, like you lost something that was very close to you, but we can still keep living. We can still keep things living and going. The gift basket idea, it's another way to just also kind of communally say like your group of friends are here for you. People also feel comfortable taking someone out, like for dinner or like doing their own thing personally with them. But like this gift basket idea among my friends, I find like it's a good way to kind of let our friend know that we're there for them right now, and then in due time we can each do individual things with them.
Yeah,
It's a good way. I feel like it's a good way to kind of replace the I don't know what to say thing with like
completely, completely.
here's a little token to acknowledge that
That's
we
the next level of like taking a step. Like, you know, that people may not want to cook, or they haven't been out of the house for a little while, or hey, people, like you said, people just love gift baskets. So
right. Yeah.
you're just taking that step, and you don't know what to say. Sometimes you don't have to say anything, just other than like, hey, let's
Right.
get some naan.
Yeah, it's like exactly. I mean, like silence doesn't help anyone.
You're curating these like well designed, thoughtful, with like high quality items. Like, I'm putting myself in someone's shoes who's receiving this. Like, what are the reactions? I feel like I would just like explode with tears as I was unpacking and using the olive oil from Italy to dip bread into.
Usually, the last few times I've dropped them off is one was during the time of COVID, so it was really just a handoff, and the other time I left it in my friend's office when he was away, and but like you can tell like
Hmm.
it meant something to them after going through that experience. You never want someone to feel like alone in the time of grief, and so it's just a way to say like, hey, we're all there for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
recently we had a on Father's Day we had a DDC, a Dead Dad Club, get together in Prospect Park, and it was nice. We didn't talk about our own individual experiences with
Hmm.
death, but we made like tons of death jokes, and it's like a safe space. You can say stuff that's gonna be perceived as insensitive elsewhere, but once you've gone through an experience like that, there's people who understand that making jokes is a form of dealing with your grief.
Certainly, absolutely.
Yeah. Like no,
Um,
one thing I've noticed is like no one who's gone through the experience of a parent dying has ever said like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you said that. Like that's so inappropriate." Only people whose parents are still around have said that to me, and I'm like, "You'll get it, Some
Unfortunately, you'll get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
some levity in your life." Uh,
Right.
and the other thing is, even though I lost my father when I was young, it doesn't change the emotions what someone goes through when they lose a parent when they're a lot older. It's still the loss of someone you've been connected with for such a long time. I tell people like, oh, don't feel bad for me that I lost my father when I was young and everything. Like in the time that I knew him, I had a great father. He
Mhm.
gave me a lot of values and loved me. Feel bad for the people who have like shit fathers out there, the ones who
That's a
abandoned.
very good point.
Or
Yeah.
I think having to live with a father that's not, or a parent that wasn't present in your life is much more difficult than losing a parent that you can retain good memories of.
That's true, because you still have everything he taught you, and you have such good memories, and that won't be taken away from you.
Yeah. I mean, I also feel like I'm being judged constantly because I'm like, oh, my father would be so pissed if he saw that of what I'm doing right now. Like, like going from an engineer to an architect to an illustrator. It's like, okay, stop, you're going the wrong way. Uh,
Right.
it's like when my first book published, someone came up and said, "Your father would be so proud of you right now." I'm like, if he knew how much money I was making from this, he'd be so pissed.
Right. He wanted me to have security, not a creative hobby for a job, but you're doing so well in it.
Right. But, to kind of go back to what I was saying at the very beginning, my artwork now is something that I do to feel like I'm putting purpose out in the world.
Mm,
And, I've been thinking about this a lot. When someone dies, nobody says like, hey, you know how much money this guy made? No one says that on their deathbed. It's like, I want to be remembered for all this money I made, or like this big ass house I lived in. No one
right.
says that. They remember the subjective qualities of them. They were kind, they were nice.
They
Uh,
tipped well. Yep.
exactly. They looked out for other people. So it made me realize that, having a job that pays well, but I have little satisfaction from is not worth it. And so when you go through these moments where you lose life, it makes you want to embrace the life that you have currently and make sure it's worth it by the time you get to the end.
It's a
Like that
beautiful
one,
thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that one politician said, like, "Hey, the older generation is going to have to sacrifice themselves for the economy."
Yeah. And I'm okay
But
with that.
yeah, so like I went around telling people like, "Oh, I remember on my grandmother's deathbed, she said, grandson, I wish the economy was better than your last breath."
I
No
hope
one
your
has ever
Apple
said that.
stock.
Come
Yeah,
on,
no,
no one has
no.
ever said
That's
that.
hilarious. Well, I kind of wanted to close on first off, does Indian culture, what do they do surrounding death? And did your family practice that?
Yeah, so death is like my family's thing. We're kind of like the Kennedys, like we all kind of die young.
Mm.
Um, so the men in my family don't have such great luck. When my uncle died about 4 years ago, my brother said, first thing he said to me is like, "So we're like middle aged, right?" And I'm like, "Uh-huh." Yeah.
Oh, God.
The odds are not in my favor. But we're Christian Indians, so we're not like the Hindus where we take the ashes up to the Ganges and everything and disperse them. But we still do like cremation. I remember when I was young, I asked my dad, I'm like, "Oh, what kind of like tomb do you want?" He's like, "No," he's like, "You can just cremate me and throw me into the Missouri River." And I was like, "That's disgusting. Like that river's so gross." So then when he died, we cremated him, and then I
Mhm.
was like, "Well, I guess we'll throw his ashes into the Missouri River."
That's what he said. Yeah. That was
So
sort of his
it was like
wishes.
the most unceremonious thing. It was like an iced over river, and we're all yelling at each other because the eldest son has to throw the ashes into the water, and that was
Uh-huh.
my brother, and like we didn't want him to fall in, so we're all just screaming at each other. So,
Oh, yeah.
but what happened was we cremated him over in Thailand,
Hmm.
brought him back over in the suitcase, and then we had our memorial service, and then we dispersed some of the ashes in Iowa, where we're from, and then some of the ashes were given in a small urn, and my uncle took them to India, and they spread those in the Arabian Sea, just as had been done for my grandparents.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and then when my uncle died, my entire family went out to India for his funeral because we knew that our cousins and my aunt needed us. We've been through that, and we were going to be there for them no matter what. They were there for us, so we owed them the comfort
Same
that,
comfort. Yeah.
again, is one of those things where we just dropped everything and went. You have the memorial, and then you have the cremation, and the cremation, I must say, is like the toughest part, because once you see that body going into the crematorium, it's like that hits you like this is a finality. There's no coming around the bush being like, "Psych, gotcha." It's
Right.
like, no, it's done. And I remember those were the times when it hit me the hardest, when we pushed my father into the crematorium, and then seeing my uncle do that again. And I guess like in India, these things are like all out there and seen, whereas in the US, I think it's a little bit more discreet,
Mm.
um, like putting someone into an oven. So after we got the ashes, we took a boat out into the Arabian Sea there outside Mumbai. And my father's cousin is a Hare Krishna, and so he's a holy man. So he kind of led a prayer and did a Hindu prayer to kind of disperse my uncle's ashes. And when he did that, he also said, a prayer for my father. And it was at that time when like I really felt closure with my father's death. It only took that was 11 years after it happened.
Why is that? It was just because you'd gone back to
It
India?
was like, we had time to like grieve and process it, and now we were there helping another family,
Mm.
and it kind of allowed us to like let go of the sadness of the death,
Hmm.
um, and it kind of put us into a position of where we have a chance to nurture someone else going through this. And I think that's a moment when I really understood my experience can be used to help other people. A friend of mine lost her father like about a month ago, and it's one of those things where like drop everything, all hands on deck, and it's nice that she can message me. She's like, I'm just having the worst day right now. I just need to scream, and like I just need to tell someone, but I feel like you're the only one who would get it. And I was like, I get it. I get it. Just
Scream.
scream at me.
Do
Like,
it. Let it out.
it's fine.
Yeah.
I think it's like just that understanding of having a shared experience puts you in this club that no one wants to be in, but
But
it's a good one to be in.
right, the world is better that there are
Exactly.
clubs like this.
Yeah.
Well, you're a great man, and I think this is very sweet. And
Thank you.
thank you very much for sharing all this with me.
All right. Peace, man.